My wife was cheating with the man I helped build, so I took my company, my team, and my legacy back. 15 years. 15 years of my life dedicated to Stratostech, where I poured my blood, sweat, and sleepless nights into building something meaningful. I started as an eager young analyst, working my way up the corporate ladder, sacrificing weekends, birthdays, and even anniversaries to ensure the company's success. I believed in its mission, in the people, in the so-called teamwork we always preached. I believed in her. And yet, here I was, seated in a cold, impersonal conference room. The sterile fluorescent lighting above cast an eerie glow on the polished mahogany table. The walls, adorned with corporate jargon posters, seemed to mock me. Across from me sat my wife, Isla. Her posture was stiff yet exuded a confidence that made my stomach churn. Beside her was Derek, the man I had once mentored when he was nothing more than a junior analyst fumbling his way through spreadsheets. He was grinning, smug and triumphant. I should have seen this coming. Isla folded her arms, her perfectly manicured fingers tapping lightly against her forearm as she spoke.
Liam, after 15 years, we're restructuring your position.
My boyfriend will take over from here. My wife, calling this man, the man I had trained, her boyfriend, announcing my removal from the company I had helped build. I stared at her for a long moment, letting her words settle in. She wanted a reaction. She wanted me to be angry, to demand an explanation, to plead for my position, maybe even for our marriage. Instead, I leaned back in my chair, folded my hands on the table, and let a slow, deliberate smile spread across my face. I completely understand. Derek slid a manila folder across the table. I didn't need to open it to know what was inside. A severance package, a collection of HR-approved farewell documents, career resources like I was some intern fresh out of college, and a deadline. I had until Friday to clear out my desk. I lifted the folder, flipping it open casually, scanning the lines without really reading them. My fingers traced the thick paper, my mind already racing past this moment. Isla shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Derek kept his smirk, but I could see the faintest hint of nervousness in his eyes. They had anticipated rage, maybe even a scene. I let the silence stretch a little longer before speaking. And I completely understand. Relief flashed across their faces like a flickering light bulb. They thought I was defeated. They thought I was letting them win. Oh, if only they knew. If only they knew what I had planned for Monday. I walked out of that stuffy, air-conditioned office, the soft click of the conference room door behind me sounding more like a gun cocking than a mere closing. I moved down the hallway lined with glass windows, my reflection mirroring my calm exterior, a facade that masked the storm brewing inside me. Colleagues passed me by, offering light nods, oblivious to the betrayal that had just unfolded. I made my way toward my office. No, not my office anymore. I had just 3 days left to exist in this space before being replaced like some outdated software update. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me and exhaling slowly. 15 years. I scanned the room, my gaze landing on the framed awards, the team photos, the piles of notebooks filled with ideas, all testaments to the time, effort, and loyalty I'd given this place. Loyalty? What a joke. Isla had been playing me for a fool for God knows how long, and I'd been too blind to see it. How long had she been involved with Derek? How long had they been plotting this takeover? I picked up a small picture frame from my desk, a photo of Isla and me taken years ago at a company retreat. We had been happy then, or at least I had been. I stared at her smile, looking for the cracks, the hidden deception I had missed. I could feel the weight of the moment pressing on my chest, threatening to suffocate me, but I refused to let it. This wasn't defeat. No, this was merely the opening move in a much bigger game. I reached for my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Jonas Caldwell, Titan Dynamics, Stratostech's biggest competitor. I pressed dial, lifting the phone to my ear, my heartbeat steady, my voice unwavering. Jonas, it's Liam. I think it's time we talk. A pause, then a chuckle. Son, I was hoping you'd call. I smiled. Let the games begin. I sat in the dimly lit corner of Marcel's Steakhouse, a quiet, upscale restaurant where the elite came to drink whiskey and make power moves. The air smelled of aged bourbon, sizzling ribeye, and the intoxicating scent of high-stakes negotiations. Across from me sat Jonas Caldwell, the CEO of Titan Dynamics, Stratostech's biggest competitor. He was a man of presence, broad-shouldered, silver-haired, with the kind of confidence that came from years of crushing his enemies in boardrooms. He smirked as he swirled his drink, letting the silence between us stretch. So, he finally said, setting his glass down, Bonasse really thought they could just shove you out the door and steal your work? I nodded, my fingers tapping lightly against the glass of whiskey in front of me. Oh, and I planned it for months. Isla and Derek had it all mapped out, replace me, claim my work, and push their agenda forward. I took a sip, the burn of the liquor doing nothing to dull the simmering anger in my chest. The only problem? They never filed the patent on my system. Jonas leaned forward slightly, interest flickering in his sharp blue eyes. Your predictive analytics model? The one Stratostech was about to integrate into their next-generation AI platform? I nodded. And the very one. A slow, calculating smile spread across his face. And let me guess. They were waiting to fire you first before filing. Thought they could cut you out completely and claim it under the company's IP.
Exactly.
Jonas exhaled a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. Amateurs. I reached into my briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were all my notes, documentation, and the formal patent application papers, which I had never submitted under Stratostech's name. Instead, I had quietly prepared them under my own. I slid the folder across the table. Titan Dynamics can have exclusive rights to it, on one condition. Jonas raised an eyebrow. And what's that? I leaned in, lowering my voice. I don't just want a job, Jonas. I want revenge. I want Stratostech to burn for this betrayal. I want Isla and Derek to feel the ground disappear beneath them. I want to make sure that when Monday morning rolls around, they realize they destroyed themselves the moment they underestimated me. Jonas grinned, flipping open the folder and scanning the documents. He let out an appreciative hum. You know, I like the way you think, Liam. He pulled out a contract and a pen, sliding them toward me. I picked up the contract and scanned the details. A 7-figure signing bonus, a senior leadership position, full control over my technology. It was more than just a deal, it was a power move. I lifted the pen, poised over the signature line. Derek is about to walk into hell on Monday. Jonas chuckled, raising his glass. And let's make sure he never forgets it. I signed. As I drove home, my mind raced through the domino effect I had just set in motion. Step 1, secure my position at Titan Dynamics. Done. Step 2, ensure that Stratostech loses the foundation of its upcoming tech launch. In progress. Step 3, make Isla and Derek realize they have destroyed themselves. Coming soon. The thought alone was enough to make the bitter taste of betrayal fade just a little. When I pulled into the driveway of my home, a home that no longer felt like mine, I took a deep breath, steadying myself. The house was dark except for the warm glow of the living room light. Isla was waiting. I stepped inside, shutting the door behind me. She was sitting on the couch, a wine glass in her hand, looking as if she had already celebrated my downfall. She glanced at me over the rim of her glass, an amused glint in her eyes. Did you have a good last day, sweetheart? I kept my expression neutral, and it was enlightening. She smirked. I know it must be hard, but trust me, this was for the best. She leaned forward, setting her glass down. Derek is bringing a new vision to the company, something fresh. You were holding Stratostech back. I almost laughed at the audacity of it. She had spent years enjoying the life my career had provided, the lavish vacations, the cars, the house, and now she sat here trying to convince me that I had been the problem. I moved toward the kitchen, pouring myself a drink, making sure my back was to her when I spoke. Oh, if you really believe that, don't you? Well, of course, she exhaled, standing and making her way toward me. Liam, you're a great guy, but you don't see the bigger picture. Derek does. He's ambitious, I turned to face her, cutting her off with a smirk. You're betting everything on him, aren't you? She hesitated, but only for a second. Derek is the future of Stratostech. He has everything lined up, his plans, his leadership, his... Sully's stolen ideas, I interrupted, watching her smile falter. Sis planned to replace me using the work I built from the ground up. Isla narrowed her eyes. Tease, that's how business works, Liam. You should know that by now. I let the silence stretch between us, savoring it. She had no idea that her entire world was about to come crashing down. I set my drink down and smiled. You're right, Isla. Business is business. She relaxed, mistaking my agreement for defeat. She had no idea what was coming. Later that night, I sat in my home office, my laptop glowing softly in the dark. I fired off a few quiet messages to my team, my closest allies. They deserved better than to be left behind. One by one, they replied, in. If you're leaving, I'm leaving too. Stratostech is nothing without you. Let's do this. By Thursday evening, I would have secured new jobs for every single one of them at Titan Dynamics. I wasn't just walking away, I was taking my team with me. I sat back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The betrayal they'd orchestrated would be nothing compared to the devastation I was about to unleash. They thought Friday was the end of my story. They had no idea that Monday would be the beginning of their nightmare. The office felt different when I walked in on Wednesday morning. It was as if the walls had absorbed my resentment, the air carrying the weight of the betrayal. I moved through the halls with a quiet, purposeful stride, ignoring the polite nods and forced smiles from my colleagues. They didn't know yet. By Monday, they would. I reached my office and shut the door behind me, leaning against it for a moment. My gaze swept over the space, 15 years of memories contained within these four walls, the framed awards, the meticulously organized files, the shelves lined with books on machine learning and predictive analytics. All of it had once represented progress, innovation. Now, it was just a prison I had been forced to escape. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop, my fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. There was work to do. Phase 1, quiet conversations. I started with personal emails, not formal resignation notices, not yet. These were private messages, carefully worded, sent only to the people I trusted, my team, the brilliant minds who had spent the past 5 years helping me build the predictive analytics system that Stratostech was about to lose. And I need to talk. It's about what's coming. Confidential. Let me know if you're free today. One by one the replies came in. What's going on? You have my attention. Sif, this is about Derek. Say no more. I'm in. I smirked at that last one. They already knew. They had felt the shift the moment Derek started maneuvering for control. They had watched as I was slowly pushed out of critical meetings, my input dismissed, my ideas rebranded under someone else's name. They had been waiting for this moment. By lunchtime, I had private calls scheduled with every single one of them. I stepped out of my office, making my way toward the rooftop lounge, the one place in this entire building where I could think. The view stretched over the city, a sea of high-rises and ambition. I leaned against the railing, gripping my coffee cup as the first call connected. Liam, Noah, my lead developer, greeted me. What's going on? I didn't waste time. Am leaving. A pause then, and I figured. When? Friday. Another beat of silence. And the system? I smirked. It won't have it. A slow chuckle. Tell me how I can help. I laid it out for him. Titan Dynamics had secured the rights to my system. Stratostech wouldn't be able to launch without violating patents they didn't own. I was offering my team a lifeline, new jobs at Titan, higher salaries, better benefits, and, most importantly, the chance to work for a company that actually valued them. Noah didn't even hesitate, and I'm in. One by one, the conversations followed the same pattern. No one refused. By the time I returned to my office, my entire team was ready to jump ship. Phase 2, setting the stage. With my team secured, I turned my attention to controlling the fallout. I began quietly backing up all my files, ensuring I had documentation of every line of code, every algorithm, every data model. Not to steal anything, no, that wasn't necessary. The true power wasn't in what Stratostech currently had, it was in what they didn't have. And after Friday, they would have nothing. I spent the afternoon drafting a formal report detailing my system's limitations, an internal document that Stratostech had ignored when Derek decided to claim it as his own. It explained in painful detail how the predictive analytics model required my proprietary framework to function. Without it, their launch would fail, and once I was gone, no one would know how to fix it. Phase 3, the final move. By Thursday, whispers had started. People noticed the closed-door meetings, the conversations, the looks exchanged between me and my team. I was sitting in my office when Isla walked in. She didn't knock. She never did. I didn't look up. Can I help you? She sat down across from me, her legs crossed, the same smug confidence she'd worn in the conference room still lingering in her posture. And you're taking this well, she remarked, tilting her head. Inspected more resistance. I closed my laptop, finally meeting her gaze. Oh, what would be the point? Her lips curled into a satisfied smile. Exactly, it's business, Liam. You understand that, don't you? I held her gaze, letting the silence stretch between us, then I smiled. Oh, I understand completely. She relaxed, exhaling in relief. That was her mistake. She thought I had accepted it, that I had come to terms with my demotion, my replacement, my betrayal. She had no idea that by Monday morning, she and Derek would be standing in the middle of a crumbling empire, grasping at the ruins of their own arrogance. She stood, smoothing down her dress. Good luck with whatever comes next, Liam. I watched her walk away, my smirk deepening. Luck? I wouldn't need it. Thursday evening, the last goodbye. As the sun set, I sent one final message to my team. Tomorrow, we walk out together. They responded almost instantly. See you in the morning. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. The storm was coming. The wheels were already in motion. Tomorrow, I would pack up my office, shake hands, pretend to be grateful for the opportunity, and on Monday, they would realize they had destroyed themselves. Friday arrived with a deceptive calm. I woke up early, as if it were just another normal day. The sun filtered through the curtains, casting golden streaks across the bedroom floor, and for a moment, I let myself absorb the stillness. This was the last day I would step into Stratostech as their employee. As I got dressed, I glanced over at Isla, who was still in bed, her face relaxed in sleep. She had no idea that her entire world was about to tilt, that the very foundation she and Derek thought they had secured was already crumbling beneath them. I straightened my tie, buttoned my cuffs, and looked at myself in the mirror. I wasn't leaving defeated. I was walking out with my pride, my team, and my legacy intact. By Monday, Stratostech would be on fire, and they'd have no one but themselves to blame. The final goodbye. When I arrived at the office, the energy in the air was different. My colleagues greeted me with the usual pleasantries, but there was something else in their eyes. Curiosity, confusion, maybe even pity. No one openly mentioned my departure, but the way they looked at me, the way they hesitated before speaking, told me everything. I took my time packing, not because I was sad, but because I wanted them to see it. I placed each framed award into my box, the ones that recognized the breakthroughs I had pioneered. I pulled down my whiteboard filled with notes, diagrams, blueprints for a future Stratostech would never see, and wiped it clean. By noon, my office was empty. Just as I was sealing the last box, I heard a familiar set of footsteps. I didn't even have to look up. Isla stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a glassy smile on her lips, too satisfied, too smug. She tilted her head slightly, feigning sympathy.
I hope there are no hard feelings, Liam. It's just business.
I turned to her, letting my eyes linger on her face, memorizing this moment because soon she would realize just how expensive this business decision was. I smiled. Oh, of course. Business is business. She relaxed, as if she had just dodged a bullet. She had no idea the gun was still loaded. The walk out. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I walked through the halls, box in hand, passing by people who barely met my gaze. They thought they were seeing the end of my story. They had no idea they were witnessing the beginning of theirs. As I stepped toward the exit, I heard shuffling behind me. I turned. One by one, my team emerged from their offices, each carrying their own boxes. The quiet murmurs in the hallway turned into hushed whispers, then the whispers turned into shock. The security guard at the entrance hesitated, looking between us and his walkie-talkie. He wasn't trained for this. I stepped through the doors and into the crisp afternoon air. My team followed. We didn't say anything. We didn't need to. By Monday, the world would say it for us. The weekend before the storm. I spent the weekend preparing, not for the loss. I had already won. I met with Titan Dynamics' executive team. We strategized, finalized press releases, legal countermeasures, and a timeline for rolling out my technology, Stratostech's so-called future, under a different name, under my control. Jonas Caldwell grinned as he raised his glass. Monday's going to be a fun day. I smirked. For us. Not for them. Sunday night, the last message. At 9 o'clock in the evening, as I poured myself a drink, my phone buzzed. A text from Isla to Liam. I just want to say, I hope we can move forward without bad blood. I took a sip of my whiskey, letting the message sit there unread. She was trying to smooth things over, to ensure she could control the narrative before Monday. She had no idea that by 9 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, her name would be tied to a disaster. I placed my phone face down. I'd let her wait. Because tomorrow, she would understand the price of betrayal. Monday, the storm hits. Monday arrived with the precision of a well-set trap. I woke early, my mind clear, my hands steady. The house was silent, except for the faint rustling of the curtains as the morning breeze seeped through the open window. Today was the day. As I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my tie, I could feel it, the shift in power, the weight of the moment pressing against my chest. Stratostech thought they had won. Isla and Derek believed they had finally erased me. By the end of the day, they would realize they had set fire to their own kingdom. I checked my phone. 7 o'clock in the morning, right on schedule. A notification blinked at the top of my screen. Titan Dynamics press release. I tapped it open, my lips curling as I read the headline. In Titan Dynamics acquires exclusive rights to groundbreaking predictive analytics. Technology welcomes Liam Carter as Chief Technology Officer. A full-page announcement, my name, my title, my creation. And Isla and Derek, they weren't even footnotes. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment. The world was about to see the truth, who the real architect of success had been all along. I grabbed my briefcase and headed downstairs. I wanted to be at my desk when the storm hit. 7:30 in the morning, the first shockwaves. As I settled into my new office at Titan Dynamics, my phone started buzzing. Texts, emails, missed calls from former colleagues, friends, even journalists. I ignored most of them. The real fun was just beginning. Then, at 9 o'clock in the morning, my phone vibrated with a message that made me chuckle. A text from a former colleague, Niam. It's absolute chaos here. What did you do? I smirked, typing back. I took back what was mine. 9:15 in the morning, the mass exodus. Back at Stratostech, the first signs of collapse began to show. My former team, the brains behind the entire system, had timed their resignations perfectly. One by one, emails landed in Stratostech's inbox. Ineffective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Stratostech. 6 key engineers, all gone in the span of 10 minutes. And just like that, Stratostech's entire predictive analytics division ceased to exist. 9:30 in the morning, the executive panic. The first real sign of trouble came when a call from Stratostech's executive office reached Titan Dynamics. I picked up, keeping my voice calm, professional. A nervous, trembling voice filled the line. "Tilium, it's James from legal. We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair. About what?" There was a pause, then hesitantly. About your system." I smiled. There it was. I let the silence hang before responding. "So I no longer work for Stratostech, James. You'll have to take it up with my new employer." Another pause, then almost a whisper. "Oh no, they never filed the patent, right?" I let out a slow breath, as if I were hearing it for the first time. "That's unfortunate." "And you're not going to help us?" I chuckled. "James, I don't work for you anymore. You should probably talk to Derek about that." I ended the call. Let them drown. 10 o'clock in the morning, Isla's realization. By now, Stratostech's investors were calling. The predictive analytics system, the one Derek and Isla had promised would revolutionize the industry, was suddenly off limits. Panic spread like wildfire. Stock prices wobbled, clients started pulling out, and then Isla finally texted me. "Tilium, we need to talk. There's a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. As if she hadn't sat across from me, smug and satisfied, telling me I was being replaced by her boyfriend. As if she hadn't signed off on my termination, thinking I would go quietly. I stared at the message for a long moment before locking my phone. Let her sweat. 11 o'clock in the morning, Derek's collapse. While Isla tried to contain the damage, Derek was crumbling in real time. At Stratostech's Monday morning leadership meeting, he had nothing to present. The system, the very thing he had promised the board, was now gone. Executives demanded answers. Investors wanted explanations. By noon, Derek was visibly shaken, scrambling for solutions he didn't have. I pictured him standing in that conference room, sweating through his overpriced suit, realizing he had gambled his entire future on a stolen idea that was never really his. Poetic. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the lawsuit threat. Stratostech's legal team finally made their move. A lawyer from their side called Titan Dynamics, threatening legal action. Jonas handled it personally. After listening to their panicked accusations, he simply replied, let them try." They had no claim, no contract, no patent, nothing. By the end of the call, their lawyer's voice was shaking. Stratostech was out of moves. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the death spiral begins. Stratostech's stock plummeted, a 15% drop by close of business. Clients demanded refunds, investors pulled out, and by evening the board finally realized who was responsible for this disaster. By Friday, Isla and Derek would be jobless. 6 o'clock in the evening, Isla's desperation. My phone buzzed again. "Isla, Tinium, please, we can work something out." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the screen. She was trying to salvage what was left, trying to bargain, trying to undo what couldn't be undone. I typed a single word, "No." Then I locked my phone and took a deep breath. Victory tasted sweet. Tuesday, the inevitable. By Tuesday morning, Stratostech's top executives were in full-blown panic mode. Investors had started demanding explanations as reports of my departure and Titan Dynamics' acquisition of my systems spread through the tech industry. And at the center of it all, Isla and Derek, sinking deeper into the disaster they had created. 10:30 in the morning, the desperate strategy meeting. Inside Stratostech's glass-walled boardroom, a chaotic emergency meeting was underway. Derek, the supposed future of the company, sat at the head of the table, frantically flipping through reports. His once cocky posture was now rigid, his forehead slick with cold sweat. Isla sat beside him, her arms folded, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her fear. Across from them, Stratostech's CEO, Victor Langston, fixed them with a stare sharp enough to slice through concrete. "Let me get this straight," he said, his voice dangerously calm. Tutu fired the man who built our key technology, didn't file the patent, and now Titan Dynamics has full control over it. Silence. Then Isla spoke. Victor cut her off with a single raised hand. Don't Just don't. One of the financial directors cleared his throat. Sir, as of this morning, we've lost an additional $125 million in stock value. Clients are terminating contracts. Our entire predictive analytics division is essentially gone. Victor rubbed his temples, his jaw tightening. And you're telling me that there is nothing we can do to reclaim this system? Derek swallowed hard. We can try negotiating with Liam. Maybe there's a way to... Victor's head snapped up, his expression icy. When negotiate? He laughed bitterly. And you stabbed him in the back in the most humiliating way possible, and now you think he'll sit down with you over coffee and give you back his life's work? Derek had no response. He was drowning. And Isla, she was starting to realize just how badly they had miscalculated. 11 o'clock in the morning, Isla's plea. Back at Titan Dynamics, I sat in my sleek new office, sipping my coffee as I watched the chaos unfold in real time. My phone buzzed. Isla, Liam, we need to talk, please. I set the phone down and smiled. She was cracking. This was no longer the smug woman who had fired me with her boyfriend at her side. This was someone grasping for a lifeline in an ocean of consequences. I let the message sit for a full 10 minutes before responding, "So I don't see what we have to discuss." A moment passed, then another, then a longer message came through. Liam, I know you're upset. I know things got out of hand, but you can't seriously want Stratostech to go under. Think about what we built together. Think about all the people who will suffer if this continues. Oh, there it was. Not an apology, not remorse, a guilt trip. A desperate attempt to make me feel responsible for her failure. I chuckled softly, shaking my head. She still thought I was the same loyal, devoted husband who would always clean up her messes. She was wrong. I took my time typing my response. Panade, you made your choice, Isla. Now live with it. 12:30 in the afternoon, the lawyers get involved. By noon, Stratostech's legal team had reached out to Titan Dynamics with a formal letter packed with legal jargon, filled with empty threats about intellectual property rights they didn't actually own. Jonas, my boss, read through it and snorted. Tince is adorable. He tossed the papers onto his desk and leaned back in his chair, smirking. But I have no case. We have the patent, we have the resignations, and we have the contracts. Let them try to fight it. I chuckled, sipping my coffee. Thought they're panicking. Jonas grinned. Could. Let them sweat. He pulled out his phone and made a single call. Within an hour, Titan Dynamics released a public statement confirming our exclusive rights to the predictive analytics technology. And just like that, Stratostech's stock took another dive. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the internal collapse. By mid-afternoon, Stratostech was in shambles. Executives were questioning Isla and Derek's leadership, board members were furious, and the financial loss was growing by the minute. Inside Stratostech's main conference room, Isla sat with her head in her hands, while Derek stared blankly at his laptop screen, their perfect plan reduced to ashes. That was when Victor made his decision. He stood at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. This can't continue. Derek perked up. You're fired, Victor interrupted. The room fell silent. Derek blinked. What? Victor turned to Isla. Both of you. Effective immediately. Isla's face paled. Victor, you can't. I just did, he said, turning to the HR director. Send security to clear out their offices. Derek shot to his feet.
You're making a mistake.
Victor's voice was calm but final. No, Derek. The mistake was ever thinking you were qualified to take Liam's place. Isla's eyes darted between Victor and the other executives, looking for support. There was none. Their careers were over. 6 o'clock in the evening, the final message. Back at home, I poured myself a drink, watching the city lights flicker through my window. My phone buzzed again. Isla, Liam, please. I lost everything today. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment, feeling nothing, no anger, no satisfaction, just certainty. This was the price of betrayal. This was the weight of their choices finally catching up to them. I lifted my glass, took a slow sip, and typed my final response, no. Then I deleted her number. Some losses are permanent. Tuesday morning, a new beginning. Tuesday morning came with a sense of finality. For the first time in 15 years, I didn't wake up as an employee of Stratostech. I wasn't rushing through the motions of preparing for another day at a company that had betrayed me. Instead, I was exactly where I needed to be, in control. As I walked into my new office at Titan Dynamics, the air felt lighter. There was no tension, no weight of an impending knife in my back, just opportunity. I sat at my desk, reviewing the latest stock reports. Titan Dynamics up 12%. Stratostech down another 9%. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the numbers sink in. The company that had fired me, that had smugly handed over my career to a fraud, was falling apart in real time, and I didn't have to lift another finger. The damage was already done. 9 o'clock in the morning, Stratostech's breaking point. Across the city, inside Stratostech headquarters, chaos reigned. The board of directors had gathered for an emergency meeting, but the mood in the room was grim. Without Isla and Derek, they were left scrambling for leadership, but the real problem, the clients were leaving. One by one, major contracts were being canceled, clients citing lack of confidence in the company's future. By the end of the morning, Stratostech's quarterly revenue projections had dropped by over $200 million. Investors were furious. The stock was in free fall, and in the midst of it all, a rumor started spreading through the building. Titan Dynamics was planning a buyout. It was unconfirmed, but the very idea sent a shockwave through Stratostech's remaining employees because if it was true, it meant Stratostech was officially finished. 10:30 in the morning, the call from Victor. My phone rang. I already knew who it was before I answered. "Ponium," came Victor Langston's voice, Stratostech's desperate CEO. "We need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, smirking. "What about?" A heavy sigh came through the receiver. "I know exactly what about." I let the silence stretch, enjoying his discomfort. "Kalium," he continued, "and we're willing to negotiate. We need that system back. If there's a way to—" I cut him off. "There isn't." He hesitated. "Tilium, let's be reasonable." I let out a quiet chuckle. "Reasonable?" I repeated. "You mean like when Isla and Derek fired me and tried to steal my work?" Victor's silence spoke volumes. "You had your chance," I said, my voice calm but firm. "Stratostech bet against me, and now you're losing. That's business, isn't it?" Victor exhaled sharply. "So that's it? You're just going to watch us crash?" I shrugged. It's not my problem anymore." He started to say something else, but I ended the call. Let them fall. 12 o'clock noon, the final blow. At noon, Titan Dynamics held a press conference. Jonas Caldwell took the stage, standing behind a sleek podium as cameras flashed. The room was filled with journalists, tech insiders, and financial analysts, all eager to hear what he had to say. And what he said changed everything. "Then Titan Dynamics is proud to announce that we have successfully acquired the exclusive rights to the most advanced predictive analytics technology in the industry," Jonas stated. "This is a new era for innovation, and we're excited for what's next." Then he glanced at me, smiled, and gestured toward the audience. "And to lead this new era, I'd like to introduce our new Chief Technology Officer, Liam Carter." The crowd erupted in applause as I stepped onto the stage. I took my time before speaking, scanning the room, letting the moment sink in. Then I leaned into the microphone. "This is just the beginning." 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the collapse of Stratostech. By mid-afternoon, the stock market delivered the final blow. Stratostech's stock was down 22%. Major investors were pulling out. CEO Victor Langston was rumored to be stepping down in less than 48 hours. Stratostech had gone from industry leader to a company on the verge of imploding. And the cherry on top, by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Titan Dynamics officially announced that it was exploring the possibility of acquiring Stratostech at a reduced valuation. In other words, we were about to buy the company that fired me. 6 o'clock in the evening. Isla's final message. I was at home sipping whiskey when my phone buzzed. A message from Isla. "Tilium, can we talk?" I stared at the screen for a long moment, the weight of everything that had happened crashing down all at once. This woman, who had once been my wife, my partner, had been so eager to erase me from her life. She had sat in that conference room, looking me in the eye, smug and victorious, believing she had won. And now she was sitting in the wreckage of her own making, reaching out to the very person she had betrayed. I typed a response. "There's nothing left to talk about." Then I deleted her number. 9 o'clock in the evening, the end of an era. I sat outside, watching the city skyline, whiskey glass in hand. This was it. Stratostech, the company I had built my career around, the company that had thrown me away like I was nothing, was finished. And me? I had won, not just in terms of career success or reputation, but in something far more important. I'd proven them wrong. Isla and Derek had thought I was replaceable, that I would fade into obscurity while they took credit for my work. But instead, they had destroyed themselves. I took one last sip of my drink, savoring the taste of victory. Then I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years. This chapter of my life was officially closed. The aftermath. The first thing I did the next morning was check the financial reports. It was routine at this point, a habit honed from years of leading projects and managing high-stakes decisions. But today, it wasn't just about monitoring trends. Today, it was about witnessing the wreckage of Stratostech in real time. The numbers were brutal. Stratastech's stock had plummeted another 14% overnight. Clients had formally withdrawn from multiple contracts. Investors were publicly demanding leadership changes. It was a slow-motion collapse, a corporation rotting from the inside out, and I was watching from the front row. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the warmth settle in my chest as I scrolled through the latest news articles. One headline stood out: Stratastech faces uncertain future after CEO shakeup and executive firings. I smirked. Victor Langston, Stratastech's former CEO, had officially resigned late last night. That meant leadership was in free fall, and with no clear direction, the company was spiraling toward a full-blown disaster. And then my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Unknown number. I already knew who it was. I let it ring a few times before answering. "Tliam," a familiar voice said. "Said I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but please, just listen." Isla. I didn't say anything. I just let the silence stretch, forcing her to feel every ounce of discomfort. She cleared her throat, trying again. I know things ended badly. I know you're angry." I chuckled. Angry? That wasn't the right word. I was done. "And I made mistakes," she continued. "See that now." "Do you?" I asked, finally speaking. "And because from where I'm sitting you look like someone who just realized she bet on the wrong horse." She exhaled shakily. "Tliam, I lost everything." I could hear the rawness in her voice, the stress, the exhaustion. She was desperate. She deserved every second of it. I waited, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. When I didn't respond, she pressed on. I thought things would turn out differently." I laughed. "Oh, yeah, I bet you did." There was a pause. "Can we meet?" she finally asked, voice soft. "Please." I didn't even hesitate. "No." She inhaled sharply, like the word had physically hurt her. "Liam, since you made your choice, Isla," I said coldly. "Said you and Derek thought I was disposable, that I'd fade into nothing while you two celebrated. And now that you've burned everything down, you think I'd want to sit across from you?" She was quiet. "Good. Let her sit with that." "You fired me," I continued, my voice level. "And you replaced me. You betrayed me in the most humiliating way possible. So tell me, why the hell would I ever do you a favor?" She sniffled. Was she crying? I almost laughed at the irony of it. I had spent months feeling like I had lost everything: my job, my marriage, my sense of stability. Now, she was the one drowning. I gave her one final silence before saying, Don't call me again." And then I ended the call. 12:00 noon, the final offer. By noon, Jonas Caldwell, my new boss at Titan Dynamics, called me into his office. I stepped inside, taking a seat across from his massive desk, watching as he leaned back in his chair, grinning. "Oh, you're going to like this," he said, sliding a folder toward me. I picked it up, flipping it open. My eyes scanned the first few lines before I let out a low whistle. Stratastech was officially looking for a buyer. Victor stepping down was the last straw. Jonas explained, "When a board knows they're screwed, they're hemorrhaging money, and investors are fleeing." I nodded slowly, absorbing the reality of what was happening. Titan Dynamics was about to acquire Stratastech at a fraction of its former value. "Here's the best part," Jonas continued, tapping the folder. "They want you in on the deal. They're offering you full control of what's left of their predictive analytics department, assuming we go through with the acquisition." I chuckled. "They're handing me the ruins of what they stole from me." Jonas smirked. "Karma's a hell of a thing, isn't it?" I flipped through the documents, my mind processing the full-circle moment I was living. Stratastech had betrayed me, fired me, replaced me, and now they were handing me the keys to what was left of their empire. I exhaled, setting the folder down. "So, when do we pull the trigger?" Jonas leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "End of the week. 3:00 in the afternoon, Derek's breakdown." Across the city, in the remains of what had once been his office, Derek sat at his desk, staring at the latest financial reports. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days, his shirt wrinkled, his tie loosened, his normally perfect hair a mess. He had lost everything: the power, the position, the future he had so arrogantly assumed was his. And now the company he had backstabbed his way to control was about to be sold off. Derek buried his face in his hands. This wasn't supposed to happen, but it had, because of me, because he had underestimated the wrong person. 6:00 in the evening, the toast to the end. That evening I sat on the balcony of my penthouse, a glass of whiskey in hand, watching the sunset over the city. Titan Dynamics had done the impossible. They had turned my personal revenge into a business strategy. Stratastech would soon be nothing more than a name on a list of companies that made terrible decisions. And me? I had won. No more Isla, no more Derek, no more looking over my shoulder, wondering if my work would be stolen. I had built something, and I had taken it with me. I raised my glass to the skyline, whispering, "To the ones who never saw it coming." Then I drank, and for the first time in a long time I felt free. The acquisition. The day Titan Dynamics finalized its acquisition of Stratostech, I was sitting in my new office sipping coffee and watching history unfold. The deal had been in the works for weeks, but today it became official. Stratostech, once an industry titan, was now nothing more than a subsidiary under Titan Dynamics control, a shadow of what it had once been. And the irony? I was now the man in charge of the very division they had tried to steal from me. The press was eating it up. Stratostech acquired in stunning turn of events. Titan Dynamics names Liam Carter as head of Predictive Analytics Division. The man they fired is now their boss. The headlines weren't just business news, they were poetic justice in print, and I was about to deliver the final blow. 10 o'clock in the morning, walking back into Stratostech. I stepped through the front doors of Stratostech headquarters, the same building where I had been humiliated and thrown out. But today, I wasn't here as an outcast. Today, I walked through the halls as a man who owned the place. The whispers started immediately. Employees who had once avoided eye contact with me after my firing were now staring outright. Some looked nervous, others shocked, and a few, the ones who had stayed loyal to me even in silence, nodded in respect. I made my way to the main conference room, where the new leadership meeting was about to begin, and I knew exactly who would be there. 10:15 in the morning, the final showdown. I pushed open the doors and stepped inside. Seated at the long mahogany table were the remaining executives, department heads, and legal advisors, those who had survived the collapse. And at the far end of the table, Derek, or rather what was left of him. Gone was the arrogant, cocky man who had once grinned at me across this very table, believing he had won. In his place sat a defeated shell, eyes bloodshot, posture slouched, hands twitching. The weight of his failure was pressing down on him, and for the first time he truly looked powerless. I took my seat at the head of the table, the same seat Victor Langston once occupied, and let the silence stretch. The tension in the room was palpable. Then I leaned back, exhaling slowly, and finally broke the silence. "Let's talk about what's next." Derek flinched at the sound of my voice but said nothing. He knew his fate was no longer in his hands. One of the senior executives, a man named Marshall Graves, cleared his throat nervously. "Aniam, we just want to say—" I raised a hand. "Stop." He fell silent immediately. I turned to Derek, taking my time, letting the moment sink in before I spoke. "Pony, you tried to erase me," I said, my voice calm, measured. "Senate, you sat across from me in this very room thinking you had won. You thought you could take my work, my career, my name, like I was nothing." Derek swallowed, but he still didn't speak. I smiled. How did that work out for you?" The silence in the room was deafening. Derek opened his mouth, but no words came out. He had nothing left to say. I turned to the legal team. His contract. One of the lawyers quickly handed me a folder, and as of this morning, his employment has been terminated. I flipped open the document, barely skimming it before sliding it across the table to Derek. "You're done," I said simply. "You have 1 hour to clear out your office." He sat there, frozen, his jaw clenching as his eyes darted around the room, searching for someone, anyone, to back him up. But no one spoke. No one defended him. No one was on his side anymore. This was the moment Derek realized he was utterly alone. His breathing turned shallow, his face paling. Please. Please." I shook my head. "We're done here." For the first time, he looked like he understood what true loss felt like. Without another word, he pushed back from the table, stood up and walked out. And just like that, he was gone. 11:30 in the morning, the final nail in the coffin. With Derek officially out, the last loose end was Isla. I didn't expect to hear from her again, but as I walked out of the conference room, my phone buzzed with a notification, voicemail from Isla. I hesitated for a moment before pressing play. Her voice came through, small, weak, and filled with something I had never heard from her before. Actual regret. "Tinium, I don't know where to start. I know you don't owe me anything, but I lost everything. You were right about everything. I thought I was making the right choices. I thought Derek was—" She choked on a breath. "I was stupid. I just wanted more. And now I have nothing. No job, no money, no future. I don't even have him anymore." A long pause, then barely a whisper. "Do you ever think we could start over?" I let the message play out, but I already knew my answer. I deleted it. She wasn't worth my time anymore. 6 o'clock in the evening, the celebration. That evening, I sat in a private rooftop lounge, a glass of whiskey in my hand, as I watched the city skyline. Jonas raised his own glass, smirking. "Smirking, you did it." I exhaled slowly, letting the words sink in. "Yeah, I did." Stratostech was mine now. The company that had tried to erase me had become part of my empire. Isla, gone. Derek, nothing but a footnote in a cautionary tale. I lifted my glass, smirking. To the ones who thought I was replaceable. Jonas chuckled, clinking his glass against mine. And to the ones who never saw it coming. I took a slow sip, the warmth of the whiskey settling deep in my chest. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. No bitterness, no anger. Just a future that was completely mine to build. And the best part? This was just the beginning. The new era. The first morning after Stratostech's official acquisition felt different, not in a jarring way, but in a way that reminded me of standing at the edge of something vast and new. The past few months had been a relentless storm, betrayal, revenge, and rebuilding. Now the dust had settled and I had won. I walked into the Titan Dynamics building, now the new headquarters of Stratostech's Predictive Analytics Division, and was immediately greeted with nods of respect, murmurs of approval. The employees who had once whispered behind my back, who had distanced themselves when I was thrown out, were now seeing me in a new light. I had not only survived, I had come back as their boss. I didn't need their validation, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel damn satisfying. As I stepped into my office, my phone buzzed. A message from Jonas Caldwell, "Tay boardroom in 10. Time to seal the last deal." I already knew what it was about, the final phase of the takeover. This wasn't just about controlling Stratostech. It was about burying its old regime completely. I straightened my tie, smirking to myself. Time to close the book. 10 o'clock in the morning, the last boardroom meeting. The meeting was set in one of Titan's sleek new boardrooms, where the remaining Stratostech executives had been summoned. I walked in and took my seat at the head of the table, a place that once belonged to Victor Langston, then Isla and Derek, and now me. Jonas sat beside me, flipping through a stack of documents, while the executives looked around nervously. Some of them had sided with Derek, some had stayed neutral, and some had quietly reached out to me the moment they realized he was failing. Jonas leaned back, looking at them like a wolf surveying a dying pack of sheep. "Let's get this over with," he said casually. I folded my hands on the table, scanning their faces before speaking. And as of today, Stratostech is officially absorbed into Titan Dynamics. That means two things. First, we will restructure every major department to align with Titan's goals. I let my words settle before continuing. And second, I slid a folder across the table. Anyone who had a hand in my removal, in sabotaging my work, or in backing Derek will not be coming along for the ride. A ripple of tension passed through the room. Some shifted uncomfortably, others looked straight at their hands, realizing what was happening. Jonas flipped open the folder and began reading names one by one. The faces around me fell apart as their fates were announced. Some were being fired immediately, some were being demoted to positions far beneath what they once held, some were being transitioned out over the next few months. Company speak. For clean out your desk before we make you irrelevant. Derek was gone, Isla was gone, but now the rest of the rot was being cut out too. By the end of the meeting, Stratostech's old leadership had been completely wiped out. I stood, buttoning my jacket. "Thank you for your time," I said, just as they had dismissed me in that cold, soulless conference room months ago. I walked out, leaving them to sit in the ruins of their own making. 12 o'clock noon, the final message. Back in my office, I checked my phone. A notification flashed across the screen, a text from Isla. I hesitated before opening it. I heard what happened at the board meeting today. I guess it's really over now. I stared at the message for a long moment, debating whether to respond. Then a second text came through. "And no, I can't undo what I did. I know I was cruel and selfish and wrong, but I don't know how to move forward from this. I lost everything, Liam, and for the first time, I don't have a plan." I exhaled, setting my phone down on my desk. She was lost, completely adrift in the wreckage of her own ambition. Once, that might have meant something to me, but now it didn't. I picked up my phone and typed one final response. "That's not my problem anymore." Then I deleted her number for the last time. No more second chances, no more history tying me to her. I was done. 6 o'clock in the evening, a toast to the future. That evening, I sat on the private balcony of my new penthouse, whiskey in hand, staring out at the city I had conquered. The skyline stretched before me, a testament to the world that I had reclaimed on my own terms. Jonas leaned against the railing beside me, raising his glass. "So, how does it feel?" I took a sip before answering. "Like the end of one story and the beginning of another." He chuckled. "Damn right it is. And let's be real, you're just getting started." I smirked. Derek thought he was a shark. Turns out he was just a minnow swimming with the real predators. Jonas laughed, shaking his head. And Isla? I shrugged. She got what she wanted, didn't she? He raised an eyebrow. She wanted a future without me, I continued. Now she has it. Jonas nodded, clinking his glass against mine, and to the ones who thought they could bury us. I smirked, raising my glass. And to the ones who never saw it coming. We drank, the warmth of victory settling deep in my chest. And as I looked out over the city, I knew one thing for certain: this was just the beginning.